Hello everybody, in this video I just want to show you how I am going to make the buttonholes for my Chaval coat in the thick wool from Minerva. I made yesterday a sample and I was really pleased how fast and easy they went, even if the fabric is pretty thick. So I'm going to show you in this video how I've done my bound buttonholes in this thick wool, and also how to finish the facing of the coat when I'm going to make it in my real garment. So I hope you enjoy this. I just want to say that the method is really easy and very fast, and it's also there is not so much room for mistakes. So I just want to say that I used very narrow lips for my buttonhole, but of course you should decide on the size, and I'm starting with making the lips or the welts for the buttonhole for 6mm width, but of course if you want the bigger ones you can go bigger, but take care, don't go too wide with your lips, because otherwise you have the chance that they are going to stretch and look a little bit sloppy. So I hope you'll enjoy this video. Don't forget to give thumbs up at the end and subscribe to my channel, because soon I'm going to put another tutorial on how to make this really cool pocket. Is something that I'm going to use for my coat also, because I don't want to use the straight ones, the welt pockets with the flap. I just want the slanted ones, and here very soon I'm going to show a tutorial also how to make this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. Okay, so the first step is to make the lips of the bound buttonhole, and to do that I have a piece of fabric. It's just a piece of fabric cut it on the straight of grain, and I interfaced it. I did interface it in my first sample, and it worked well, so I think you need to test this to see if your fabric does need interfacing or not. But I did it. This fabric is pretty heavy, but to be sure that it's not going to stretch, because the buttonhole is getting a lot of use. So I have here a piece of fabric, must be around, let me think, maybe 1.5 inch, so like 3 inches, and because then you have to fold it in two. And first I'll have to sew a row of straight stitches 6mm from the fold. So this is the cutted edge, and here I have the fold, and I'm going to sew 6mm away from the fold. I'm just going to align it here and just straight stitch. It's very important to be accurate, to have the 6mm from the fold. So take somewhere a point of reference and use that. After this, you can see it here, I am going to stitch another row 6mm away from the first row of stitches. So I'm going to stitch 6mm further to this side. So again, I'm going to here I have an edge on my presser foot, so I'm just going to use that as a point of reference. Let me see if I can, my light is very bright, I did cover it up here, but maybe I should cover it here also a little bit. So we will try like this. Again, I'm going to sew a row of stitches 6mm away from the first one. These two steps are very important for getting later perfect straight lips on your buttonhole. Okay, let's see. And this is what I have now, 2 rows of stitches, 6mm from the fold, and again 6 millimeters from the first row of straight stitches. After I have this, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, sorry. After this, I'm going to cut exactly on the second row of stitches I made. And I'm going to use my big shears for this. You can use also smaller ones if you want to be more secure. So this is the piece, and I'm going to cut exactly on the second row of stitches, exactly on top of it. And this is actually what we are going to use as lips for our buttonholes. My button is 2.8 centimeters, so I know that I need to allow a little bit for the thickness of the button. I need to have around 3 millimeters buttonhole. So the length of the buttonhole is 3 centimeters. I'm sorry, in my case. So I need to have my lip of the buttonhole needs to be at least 3 centimeters, and then I'm going to allow, let's say, 1.5 centimeter on either side, left and right, to have a little bit, you know, space to work with it. So 3 and 3 more for the allowance. It will be 6 centimeters length for the lip. I can, because I have such a long strip, I can watch a little bit if everywhere is the same width as it should be, but maybe at the beginning maybe you have a little bit less because you just started, and at the end maybe you get also a little bit wonky. So pick on this length 2 lengths that they are the same, so or that the width is perfect, 6 millimeters, and I'm going to measure, of course. Let's see, I need to have 2 pieces. I'm going to cut this start here, and I need to have 2 of 6 centimeters. So again, 3 centimeters is the length of my buttonhole, and 3 centimeters I will allow for the, you know, to have something to work with as a seam allowance, let's say. And I'm going to fit these two together, so I have another one of 6 centimeters. As you can see, if you make a really big strip, and in my case I need to have 3 buttonholes, I will make a longer strip that I will have enough. So these are my lips, and these two are going to become my buttonhole. So now we can put our lips on the front of the jacket. Before I start that, of course, I need to mark where these lips are going to come, where my buttonhole will come. So to do that, I'm going to mark that with some basting stitches with my machine. So first, I know that my button or the buttonhole needs to come 2.8. I just measured on my pattern. It needs to come 2.8 centimeters from the center front edge. So I taped here a painter's tape on my machine, 2.8 centimeters from the needle to here. I have exactly 2.8 centimeters. I just put my stitch length really high, and now I can follow this, and I'm going to make, let's see, here somewhere I have here exactly 2.8 centimeters. I think it's important to go slowly here because the stitch length is so long. The machine can pull the fabric a little bit. The second row of basting that I'm going to make is the one that is going to give me this is the first row, and I'm going to make another row of basting stitches that is going to give me the width of the length of the is going to mark the length, or this is the start of my buttonhole, and I need to mark now the end of my buttonhole. And I know that my buttonhole needs to be 3 centimeters, so I have here my starting point, and now I know that 3 plus 2.8 I need to be with my edge, so 2.8 here and 3 here, I need to be at 5.8 from the needle. 5.8 it will be here to my second piece of tape. So I'm going to align it here now on this edge or on this tape, and I'm going to start a new row of basting stitches. The next step is going to be exactly where my buttonhole needs to come. So now I have these 2 rows, and I advise to trim your threads as you are sewing, because otherwise you have a lot of threads here. Okay, let's say this I will mark on my real coat following the pattern or my test garment. And let's say that I need to have a buttonhole, let's say I need to have it somewhere here. Let me see if I can. I think it's really terrible, that light, and I'm really sorry, but I really cannot do too much about it. Okay, so let's say that I need to have it somewhere here, or let's put it in the middle. Somewhere here I need to have my buttonhole following my pattern. So I'm going to start a little bit before that, and I'm going to make the basting stitches. And now I have the place where I need to put my lips. It's going to be here. A few threads to clip away. Okay. This is how it's looking from behind. I think you can see even better the row of stitches. This is the one, the starting of my buttonhole, 2.8 from the edge. Again, 3 centimeters the width of my buttonhole that I made, and this is the place where my buttonhole will come. The next step, of course, is going to be applying our lips. And I am going to put my first lip here. This is the fold, so all this is going to happen on the right side of your garment or of your fabric. So on the underside you have the interfacing. So this is my first lip, and I see that I missed just a tiny bit here. Let's see. And now I just took a little bit too much, but I'm going to follow the other 2 edges. So this is the fold on that is facing away from the marking, and the raw edge of the lip is coming along that first marking of the buttonhole. So I'm going to place this somewhere here, a little bit in the center, and I'm going to start sewing. And I wonder, you know what, I'm going to do it with the contrasting thread, and we are going to see how this is going to look. Of course, you'll use matching thread because you want to have everything to be invisible. Let's see. And I'm not going to start exactly here at this marking. I'm going to start somewhere away from that, a little bit in the center of that lip. And I need to check if my needle is exactly on that row of stitches. So the idea is that I'm going to sew exactly in this row of stitches that we made the first time when we started with the welt or with the lips of the buttonhole. I'm going to put my stitch length again low. I'm going to put it on a 2 and just start sewing. And as I approach this line here, I need to be careful to stop exactly on it, but I think I'm still a little bit away. Put the stitch length a little bit lower. And I'm going to put my presser foot a little bit up, turn, and I'm going to see if I'm exactly in the middle. And I'm I'm just even going to, I think I'm just a very bit away from it, so I'm just going to take one stitch more, really the tiniest stitch. Let's see, let me check, and I can see if my needle is exactly aligning with this stitch line here, then I'm in the center. Now I'm going to turn again, and I'm going to come back to this line, because as we know, we started somewhere in the middle, so my lip is not completely attached. And now again I'm going to stitch following that row of stitches we made in the beginning. I can put my stitches a little bit higher, back on 2. This is so easy, and maybe I'm moving now a little bit slow because I check every time if the camera is, if I'm on the right place with the cam, but it's really easy. Let's see, and I can see that I'm just a little bit away, so I can turn the wheel maybe with my hand, take a peek, and I think I'm perfectly on spot. And now again I'm going to come back a bit, because I just put the stitch really low, and now I can cut my threads. And let's see, this is how it's looking now. It's attached on both ends, and this is how it's looking from behind. As you can see, it's starting at this point and is ending at the other row of stitches. So this one is good. Now I can make the other one. So the other lip, I can place it here. Here is the fold line, and I'm going to put it against the other one with the raw edges butting with each other. And now I can start again to sew, and as I did the first time, I'm going to start somewhere away from that from the beginning, so somewhere in the center or thereabouts, and I'm going to start sewing. Take your time, don't hurry up here. Let me see, I think I need to come now with a 1 stitch length. Let me see, and I think I am pretty good. Maybe just a half small stitch, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to turn now, and I'm going to come back here to sew the other end also. Put my stitch length back on 2, just following those stitches. Put my stitch length again on 1. Let's see. And I think this is perfect, so I'm going to turn again to be able to end my work. And now I have my lips attached. As you can see here are the folds, and here are in the middle the raw edges. Let's see from behind. This is how it's looking from behind. I think it's looking pretty neat. I just stopped in the right place, put some threads away. So the next step, of course, is going to be to cut it here, and the best is to be done from behind, but very important is to keep this very important is to keep the lips away, so that I'm cutting only here between. So I'm cutting only the front of the jacket, let's say, and not the welts or the lips, how you want to call them. So I'm going to turn the work, and I'm going to cut it I hope you can see. I keep with my fingers the lips away and I can feel it. So the lips are open here, and I'm going to make a snip here in the center. And I'm just going to go immediately to the corners. I'm not going to make really small corners because I find them really difficult to handle later. So I'm just going to, I still have my fingers here behind. And it's very, very important to cut all the way. I hope you can see. For me it's really difficult to see, I don't have my glasses here. But to cut to the stitches. So to these points, the starting points of the lips. I hope you can see. Let me see, where is the cam? So this is one, and still keeping with my fingers here the lips open, I'm going to cut to the other stitches. Don't cut beyond the small stitches you've made here, because then your buttonhole is going to come apart. You really need to cut all the way. Let me see, as you can see, to the last stitch here. So now we have it cut. It's looking like this. Don't pull it too much, because maybe you stretch it out. And now we need to turn this to the inside. So I'm going to put them like this. And this is one, and then I'm going to put these ones together and push it to the back, and I think it's looking now really, really nice already, and it's not pressed, it's not stitched together, it's nothing, but I think it's looking really, really nice. Okay, so next step is going to be to sew these two lips together, to baste them together in order to be sure that everything is sitting in place. This is how it's looking from behind at the moment. So with thread and needle I'm going to stitch these two together, to baste them together. No fancy stitches, just baste them together to be sure that they are going to stay in place and not get open. Before hand stitching the lips closed, I just had to press the buttonhole a little bit, and to do that I'm using some pieces of paper, a little bit thicker paper, maybe like envelope, and I'm just putting these pieces of paper under the lips and under that small triangle that we just cut, and I did that on all four triangles. So I have two on each side and one here and one here. Put it like so and give it a good press, because otherwise I'll get all these thicknesses showing to the good side of my garment. And this is how the buttonhole is looking now. I think it's looking already really, really nice. And now I'm just going to stitch or to baste these lips together, in order to be sure that when I'm closing the triangles from the wrong side, that they will not get stitched open or something like that. So at this stage the buttonhole is basted, or the lips are basted close. So now I just need to go here back, pull this edge to the back, and then to reveal this small triangle, and I'm going to stitch this exactly here at the edge. And then I'm going to repeat for this side, and then the buttonhole is going to be finished. And the next thing to do is to make also a hole in the facing to get of course a functional buttonhole. So at this point the buttonhole is done. I'm removing now the basting stitches. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a mess here, and to hide this we really need to have attach the facing. So here I have my button, and it's going very easy in the buttonhole, and this is important, but because I don't want to give too much stress on my buttonhole. But now I'm going to make the facing. So my buttonhole is done. Now I need to, and let's say that this is my facing that is attached at the center front of my garment. And now I need to have a kind of hole also for the facing. So to do that, I have, and that hole needs to be finished in one way or another. So most of the people are using silk organza, and that is also what I'm going to use on my coat. But for here to be able to see better, I'm using a piece of very thin cotton. And let's say this. So I know that my hole is somewhere here. I'm going to put my square of fabric here. Is just a little bit, needs to be a little bit bigger than let's say 3 by 3 inches or something like that. That is a little bit bigger than the hole that you need to make. So I'm going to put it here onto the facing, on the right side of the facing, and I'm going to turn this, and keeping this still in place. And it's very easy, just put 4 pins in every corner of this buttonhole. I have here one, straight through the facing. Be careful not to put it straight through your fingers. And this is where my points are. And let me push this all the way, and I have a nice square here. And I'm going to use a friction pen to mark this. You can also mark only the points, and then I can put those pins out. Let's see. But first, before I'm going to do that, I'm just going to pin this cotton only on my facing, that I can take those 4 pins out. Let's see, one more here, because otherwise my markings are going to move, of course. So put this out. And now the next step is, of course, to make this rectangle, to make it close, and to be sure that I'm not going to go you know, the wrong way or not straight. I'm just going to connect these dots. Let's see. And this is going to be the hole for my facing. I know it's almost impossible to see because of that light. I don't know why it is so bad. So I'm going to start somewhere in the center of one of those long lines, and I'm just going to stitch this around. So this is what I have now, and this I'm going to cut in the same way that I did for the you know, for that opening for the lips. So make a hole somewhere in the middle, cut all the way, also here through the facing, so not only the cotton, cut it and go to the corners. And you should really go to the corners, because this small facing, either cotton or whatever you used, needs to be able to fold all the way out. And if you let just one fiber, it's not going to turn. So this is how it's looking now, and I like to give it a little bit of a finger press first. As you can see here, I'm working with a yellow thread, so all this you'll do with a matching thread. And now I'm going to put it to the back, and now we have something like this. And this is how the hole is going to look. These points needs to be able to turn really well, and if there is any kind of bunching like this, you should go back here and cut just a little bit more, but not through your stitches, but just to the stitches. And this is this I'm going to press now, favoring this cotton to the wrong side, so that when I'm turning this from the right side, I'll not see any white. This is how it's looking now, all pressed from the wrong side. Also here I used the pieces of paper all around to put them under the small triangles we made, all the way on all four sides, to be sure that I'm not going to get any imprints on the right of my fabric. And as you can see, you cannot see any of that white cotton. So this is how it's looking now. This is the finished facing on the facing, or the facing of the hole on the facing. And I just want to say that I also here I used those pieces of paper to put all on all four sides before I started to press, and because I just favored the seam here and pulled just to see a tiny bit of the blue. Now from the right side you really cannot see that the facing is a white cotton. So if you do this well, you can use whatever color you want, so you are not really you must not be worried about. So this is the facing, this is the front of the garment, and now the next step is to close it. And how you are going to do that, you are going to just stitch to slip stitch this, get a little bit of the facing, a little bit of the buttonhole, to be sure that everything is getting very well close. And so on all the way around, and then the facing is going to be very secure here, and the buttonhole is going to be functional, so I'm going to be able to close my jacket.